Let's get down to business to review Mulan. Was to see it in March, but then 'twas gone. Now I have to pay $30. Oh, what am I gonna do? I guess I'll pay and watch and review. I'm not gonna sing this entire review, because that'd be torture for anyone watching this video. So Mulan is the live-action adaptation directed by Nikki Caro. It's a live-action adaptation of the 1998 Mulan film, and it's the latest in Disney's never-ending train of live-action remakes of perfectly fine movies. Now, to be fair, the trailers for Mulan actually didn't look that bad. It looked like it was going to be a remake that wasn't just a simple retread, unlike some of the last few ones. The trailers looked good. I was definitely looking forward to this. Was disappointed when it got delayed, but that was for obvious reasons. And, you know, when they announced they were going to release on Disney Plus for $30, I'm like, only because $30, that's way too much, no matter the movie. And this movie, to me, it's disappointing. For someone who was really looking forward to this movie, this movie's disappointing. Now, I know there's a ton of controversies with this, and I'm not going to address those here, but I'm just going to talk about the movie. And there's going to be some spoilers, so I just feel like I can't really review this movie without some spoilers. So, let's talk about what I liked. The film, admittedly, I think is beautifully shot. It's like the scenery is very gorgeous throughout, to the point where I was watching it and I'm like, you know, I'm not really liking this movie, but I would have been happy to see it in a theater, because like those shots look like, okay, this needs to be seen on like the biggest screen possible. It looks absolutely stunning. The score is also really good, as there's some scenes where they incorporate some of the songs from the original movie, like Bring Honor to Us All. That's incorporated into the score at some point. They definitely rely on the song Reflection, which, honestly, I really like from the original Mulan. I think it's really good. I'm mad that in the original it's short, but in this one they do use it quite a bit throughout, and I actually really appreciated that. The acting overall is not terrible, but it's just not amazing. Like, almost all these actors are working with what they can do with the script, even though there's not really much. The only two standouts I thought were Gong Li as this witch, one of the main villains in the movie. I thought she was really good for the most part, but I'll address that with my spoilers. Meanwhile, Tzi Ma, I think I mispronounced his name. It's the actor who played Mulan's father. I thought he was also really good too. Everyone else is fine. Like I said, they're trying with whatever they got, and what they are saddled with is not really that great, unfortunately. Meanwhile, there's also a really great cameo at the end. I might address that in my spoiler review, but since I'm doing this a few days after it's already been released and there are spoilers all over the internet, there's no point. So, now let's talk about what I really didn't care for in this movie, and there's a lot. And again, spoilers later. There's a very weak villain in this movie, played by Jason Scott Lee. Like, the villain in the original Mulan was not really that memorable, at least to me. But this guy is even worse, surprisingly. Like, I don't even remember his name, honestly. And he's just so generic. It's like, why? You already have this witch. Why have this villain too? It just doesn't really make that much sense to me. Meanwhile, I absolutely hated the way the action was shot in this movie. Because, okay, again, like I mentioned with the Old Guard a few weeks ago, Gina Prince Bythewood, she never really directed action before, so I kind of like gave it a pass. Nikki Caro, she kind of falls under the same category because she's mostly directed dramas before. But this is worse, because it's like, okay, we're going to cut in between the action, so they just mainly look like pictures throughout. And, you know, that's what film is, moving pictures, but that doesn't mean it feels like there needs to be movement, and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of movement at times, unfortunately. And even at one point, they're like in the training camp, and there's like two of the higher ups, they're fighting, But it just cuts the soldiers who are watching it, and they're like, "Whoa, amazing!" and like just being amazed by what they're watching. And I'm like, I would like to feel the same way too. Can you not show that and show the fighting instead? Just didn't really make much sense. Meanwhile, I thought this movie was PG-13 because it was a war movie, and it's like, oh, it's going to really focus on the whole war aspect. Not really. Because, like, the main thing that is really rated PG-13 for is because there's some nudity, in a sense that you do see Mulan's back when she gets into the lake, and you do see one of the soldiers lose their towel at some point. Okay. So, those are the thoughts without spoilers. Here are my thoughts on the movie with spoilers. So, if you want to jump off and watch the movie, first off, I recommend just wait until December when it's free. Stupid at Disney. So spoilers. Mulan, she's a little too perfect in this movie. I try not to complain about that because it's like, I didn't really complain about Rey in the new Star Wars movies. I didn't really complain about Captain Marvel, even though people claimed, oh, they're just too perfect. This movie, Mulan, is way too perfect. It was annoying. Like, you see her fighting at the beginning, see her, like, learning her skills in the very beginning as a kid, because she's apparently the chosen one now. Like, part of the original was, like, Mulan's not really good at anything, and yet she goes off in the war and basically becomes a hero. Like, that's actually really great, but this is more like a chosen one story, and it just doesn't work for me. It just loses all that. Like, an example is the matchmaker scene, where, remember in the original, Mulan was there, and it slowly builds to make things worse. In this version, it's Mulan, and in the room with the matchmaker and her is her sister and her mother. But her sister sees a spider, and they're both like, don't do anything, and then the sister starts freaking out like, ah, spider! And it's like, shame on on Mulan's family. And it's like, okay, like, wait, what? Like, even the matchmaker scene, Mulan's not in trouble. Like, what the hell? Like, and then after, like, immediately after the scene where it's like, shame on Mulan's family, someone comes in and is like, we need one man from every family for this war. And it's like, they don't even have time to talk about what just happened. Then again, nothing really happened, and it doesn't really add to the story as a whole. Again, Mulan's just too perfect. She won't screw up her matchmaker meeting. And, like, later on, like, at one point, she has this one heart-to-heart with Gong Li's villain, which I'll address that a little bit. But afterwards, she's like, she lets down her hair so it can, like, flow through the wind, because she's like, I'm tired of hiding this lie. And she loses everything. She loses her armor as well. I'm like, okay, you're about to go into war. You need your armor. I don't care. I don't care if you're perfect. You need armor in the middle of a war. It's like she's taking out all her guys with a sword, and then she manages to get up all the way up to the top of a mountain so she can set off a trap. She's way too perfect. Again, I'm not going to complain too much about some of the other characters that Disney has done and how perfect they are, but this one I'm like, no, it's too perfect for me. Jeez. And, like, in, like, the training camps, they have this rule, basically a ton of rules. It's like, oh, if you break these, you will be banished from the camp. And at first it's like, okay, so maybe that's adding to the whole dilemma that Mulan's facing, where it's like, if they discover her, she'll be banished. But, wait a minute, that just adds, like, okay, so they show so that is this training program where they have to carry buckets of water up the top of a hill, and they can't lose any water. Which is like, yeah, that's very hard. So we see one of the soldiers cheating, like, oh, he loses some water so he can carry it, and then he's banished from camp. So it's like, okay, so is that supposed to add the stakes for Mulan? Because eventually what I realized was that, wait, if her father did the same thing, he would be sent home. So basically everything that Mulan's doing is for nothing, when you really think about it. like, even in the original, when the soldiers weren't that perfect, they still trained them to be excellent fighters. It's something I noticed afterwards, after watching the movie. And meanwhile, the villain roles, I feel like they should have been reversed. Because, like, Gong Li, you think she's going to be the main villain as this witch. Turns out she's not. It's actually Jason Scott Lee, who's this very generic villain, even more generic than the original villain from Mulan. And it's like, okay, eventually she has this girl power moment with Mulan, and I feel like it wasn't necessary. And, like, she's feeling self-doubt about herself. Is that supposed to make them relatable? Like, kind of like how they're dealing with their issues? But she's a witch. Like, shouldn't the witch actually have power over this generic villain? It makes no sense to me. And there's awkward girl power moments, but it's like, isn't it girl power enough that Mulan's fighting in this war? I'm not saying, oh, we should have a cap on girl power or anything, but have it work. And I feel like it doesn't here. Because, like, you can have a strong, tough female villain fighting against a strong, tough female hero, and it would work. But here, it doesn't, unfortunately. Despite the Ming-Na Wen, who voiced the original Mulan cameo at the end, there's really not much to say for this movie. It's a movie, like, with its plot holes. Like, I try not to judge a movie by its plot holes, because, like, literally every movie has plot holes. If I judged a movie by plot holes, I would have none of these movies behind me. But this movie, its plot holes are noticeable, and it's annoying. It's like, oh, wait, this doesn't make sense now that I'm thinking about it. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. So, Mulan, it's a disappointment as a whole. Well, I wouldn't call it terrible by any means. It's definitely better than The Lion King, I'll give it that. But that doesn't mean I want to sit and watch this again. Like, you can honestly wait until December when this is available for free on Disney Plus and just watch it. Then again, with a ton of boycotts going on in this movie, you probably aren't going to watch it anyway. So, Mulan, I'll give it 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. But only when it's free. I'll give it that. What is this film I see? What did you do to it, Disney? Why'd you turn this into something I don't know? Even though they barely tried, all I did was sit and sighed. These remakes are starting to make me feel dead inside. These remakes are starting to make me feel dead inside. Last time I'm singing, promise. So, did you watch the Mulan remake? Did you actually pay $30 like me? Hey, don't act like you spent $30 on meaningless. Hey, don't act like you didn't spend $30 on something you didn't care about. And do you like any of these remakes? If so, what's your favorite? What's your least favorite? Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and this movie didn't bring honor. That's all I'll say.